Hey guys, welcome to a all new episode of a pro wrestling podcast with Matt and friends. I am your host, Matt Kozakowski. Alongside me today is former DudeBuster, if you know him best, Mr. Caylen Croft, Kris Pavone. Kris, how you doing, man?
Matt, doing wonderful. Thanks so much for having me on. This is a lot of fun. Appreciate being here.
Oh, dude, I'm excited. Like I was just telling you, I was a big fan of the DudeBusters. Huge fan, very underrated team, and we're going to get into that in conversation here for sure. We'll start simple. Were you a fan of pro wrestling when you were a kid?
Oh yeah. Yep.
What promotions were you into?
Yeah, so just for kind of a time reference, I'm 41 today, so I was born in 1980, so I got into wrestling when I was 11. And I was WWF, like that's what I was exposed to, from the beginning. I grew up in the Northeast. I'm from Ohio. Well, that's the Midwest, but I think it's more Northeast. But anyway, Northeast Ohio in the Midwest. And WWF, SummerSlam 1990 was the first pay-per-view I remember seeing. My cousin ordered it. And this goes back to when it was only on pay-per-view. In some areas, you couldn't even get pay-per-view. Like I could not get it at my house. So, that added to the big event feel. You had to go to someone, like my cousin would get, you had to go to someone else's house to watch the pay-per-views. And so, yeah, and from about age 10, I was pretty much hooked on it from up until the time I got into it.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's probably the same story as me, 10, 11, I got into it and I've been hooked ever since, and I'll be 30 this year. So wrestling. A lot of people start at that age, man. It's interesting stories for sure. When you got started into it, when you started watching and stuff, did you always tell yourself like this is something I wanted to do, or did that come at an older age?
Yeah, it did not come much long after that. I can remember being about 12 years old and just kind of, it was almost like a download of all of a sudden it wasn't even like a realization. It was just like, yeah, this is what I want to do. In fact, I remember one time Monday Night Raw was on. I still remember the match. It was Razor Ramon versus Bastion Booger. And my sister was wanting to watch something else and I wanted to watch Raw, which by the way, I grew up, middle class. We had like 4 TVs in the house, but like there was like the one TV that everybody wanted to watch. It's not like we only had one TV on up, but anyway, my sister was, we were arguing about that, and she's like, "Mom, this wrestling stuff's so stupid." She goes, "This is what he wants to do with his life." And I remember thinking, "Yeah, I do actually." So that's like the one time I remember, like this is what I want to do, and yeah. So that was the case. When I got into high school, same thing.
Well, I mean, you got signed by OVW. That was your first promotion, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, that must have been such a cool feeling to say, like, I grew up watching the WWF and I got signed straight to them by doing OVW. I mean, so that was probably a huge honor for you.
Yeah, it really was. And so the way that worked, I get into high school and I would say, age 12, I'm like, yeah, this is what I want to do. But it's funny how, 3 years as an adult, hopefully we're always growing and learning stuff, but not a ton of time, right? 3 years. As a kid, age 12 to 15, that's like a world of difference,
Oh yeah.
So by the time I was 15, I was a sophomore in high school. That's when I really was like serious about like, wow, man, that's what I want to do. And I started training all the time for it. And by training, I mean, I just started working out. I thought, I'm a smaller guy, but let me start working out and be in shape. And so that's what I started to do. And it turns out when I got into wrestling, I really wasn't a smaller guy. I'm 5'11", 200 pounds when I was wrestling. That's kind of like Shawn Michaels, Brett, like that's, that started to kind of shift, and you didn't have to be 6'6" anymore to, make it in wrestling. but anyway, I just thought this is what I want to do. And I was really focused on that. And then it's funny because, and this is the mid 90s and, wrestling was not cool then. This is right before the boom, the Attitude Era. That happened when I was in college. And man, it was like me and one other guy in my high school were diehard wrestling fans. It wasn't like, it was like a popular thing.
Oh, right.
Shoot, I didn't care. Yeah, that's I knew what I wanted to do with my life. And so when I graduated high school, my parents can see, like, I was serious about it. So they said, look, if you're serious about this wrestling thing, just stay in school. You got to go to school and we'll be supportive of this. And so this ties in with how I ended up at OVW. So my plan was to, immediately find a place and start training right after high school. But it had to be something that fit with my school and work schedule. So I lived at home. I went to the local university, Youngstown State University, and I worked at the Youngstown Country Club in Youngstown, Ohio. So I needed something within driving distance of where I lived. And so, man, and this is a good principle, I think, of making things happen, but also they happen at the right time.
Right.
It took me 3 years to find a training school because, I would find something, but it was, it met during the week and it was too far of a drive and I just couldn't do it. Or I'd find a place that met on the weekends and I'd go visit and, like, I knew it wasn't a good school. I'm not going to give these people my money. And then, man, it took 3 years, but I read all the magazines. I read PWI, Ohio Valley Wrestling. This is in 2001, early 2001, did not get a lot of press. And I somehow found out about them, and they had a beginner's class that met on Saturdays. And this was like a new thing at the time. They were a WWF developmental territory.
Yep.
And I thought, man, how have I never heard of this place? So I called them up, and it was I talked to Nick Dinsmore, who was Eugene. He ran the beginners class, and yeah, it was once a week on Saturdays for 2 hours, and it was $500. And I thought, man, this sounds like I want to do this. Now, the only kind of issue was Louisville was a 6-hour car ride from where I lived in Youngstown, Ohio. So I was like, well, it's a bit of a car drive. Meanwhile, I got picked as a finalist in the first Tough Enough. So there was 250 people that got to go to New York City, WWF New York. And so that happened in February. And I remember my sister came with me, and I remember saying to her, I said, if I don't get picked for this, I'm signing up and I'm going to OVW, Ohio Valley Wrestling in Louisville. And I remember my sister saying to me, Kris, you can't commute to Louisville, Kentucky. And I thought, well, sure you can,
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I did not make it to Tough Enough. I remember meeting Nydia there, actually, which was funny because if you remember, she won the first one.
Yep.
And so yeah, so that May I started driving down, and I did that every single weekend for a year. And so this is a lot of backstory, but it builds into how I arrived there. And so the way it was set up then was there was the beginner's class, and then there was the contracted class. And the contracted class met during the week. And at that time, you had John Cena, Randy Orton, Batista, Brock, Shelton Benjamin. These are the guys, in class. Now, some of them would come to the Saturday class, and that's where I met Cena for the first time. That's where I met Batista. So I'm like, and keep in mind, right? These guys aren't on TV yet, but I know I knew who they were because at that time I started reading more about OVW, and and I knew some of these guys. Rob Conway was also there.
Very underrated performer.
Yeah, I agree. Rob was really helpful to me. So there's another principle here. I think it's like when we're willing to go after something, to go out of our way to really make something happen, I think the right people will notice us and are there to help. So the first thing was when I started in class, I was one of the only guys that looked like he had like been to the gym, which okay, that will help me stand out a little bit. And I remember like being kind of confused, like to me it always went hand in hand. You don't have to be Mr. Olympia, but at least look like an athlete. And so that kind of made me stand out. I had a little bit of natural ability, and then the fact that I was driving 12 hours round trip. And I think Nick was excited. Nick Dinsmore was excited to work with someone he saw I was doing that. So he gave me some like extra attention, I guess, but I think he was excited to work with somebody that was really eager to learn and wanting to do this. And after about a month, he let me stay with him because I would just get a hotel or something. And so around this time, this is where I got to know Cena. Cena helped me out a lot when I was new. Rob Conway. Shortly after that, Johnny Jeter, who was Johnny from the Spirit Squad.
Yep.
He joined the amateur class, and then so did Mark Capani, who wrestled as Mark Magnus, and he was Muhammad Hassan. So the three of us were kind of, like the standout guys in the class. Chris K, who was a referee in WWE for a lot of years, was in there as well. And after about a year, it had never been done before, but we got moved into the contracted class, which was a pretty cool thing. And so the other thing that happened was, we got to meet Jim Cornette. Cornette ran OVW TV, and we started getting booked on OVW TV, which was like, to me, a really big deal. Because WWE got to watch that, and so I kind of viewed it as a business decision. Like, what a great place to start a career, here in OVW, where it's under the eye of WWE. So I think that and then once I graduated college, I moved down there full time, and by this time I was a few years into it, and I was being used full time on the show. I was OVW Southern Tag Team Champion before I had a WWE contract. And that was a great experience to get to learn from Jim Cornette and how TV works and all of that.
Oh, no, absolutely. And we'll definitely touch base on those title runs you had in OVW. But Nick Dinsmore, another guy who's very underrated. A lot of people look at him as Eugene and don't understand that he was actually a really badass wrestler in OVW. And him and Rob Conway as a tag team was awesome.
Yeah.
It's going weird. So OVW, you were tag team champion 3 times. You were former OVW heavyweight champion. Let's take these step by step here. So OVW first tag team title run, first 2 was with Tank Toland and Adrenaline. Did you meet him during your training classes, or did you meet him like they just kind of threw you guys together? How did that come about?
Yeah. So I had mentioned how me and Johnny Jeter and Magnus were like the first guys to kind of break through and get into the contract class without a contract.
Yeah.
In a way, we were kind of like trailblazers, I guess, because what started to happen was I don't know exactly what happened, but that started to happen more and more. And this is probably a year and a half later since I started. OVW actually held open tryouts where you can, and a lot of guys and girls came, and you can come and try out for like 3 or 4 days, and then they were gonna hand select people to come train at OVW. Like no guarantees or nothing, but you can come train. So it was mixed in with contracted guys and guys that didn't have contracts, and a lot of people that came from that school or from that tryout that would then go on later to get contracts were Tank Toland. That's where Tank came from. Julian Hall, Shad, who unfortunately, passed away last year.
Right.
JTG. The JTG came down on his own, but Domino, from Deuce and Domino. And then you get guys like Joey Mercury came in on his own without a contract. And you had Matt Capitelli and John Morrison, that came from, they had won Tough Enough 3 around that time. They had contracts, but they were brand new. So my friend Wavell Star, I don't know if you're familiar with Wavell.
No.
Okay. we had a great mix of like really talented guys, some contract, some non-contracted. And so that's where Tank came from. And the way him and I became a team was we started, when I say we, like me and Jeter and Mark, we started as like enhancement talent on OVW TV. And then Cornette wrote us into the show, which, like I said before, was a big deal because, it was on TV and WWE watched that show. So it was really, that helped me get seen quicker, I feel. And he formed Adrenaline with me and Nova. And that was cool because I was a fan of Nova's and ECW. And him and I were a team, and Cornette said, I'm going to put the tag belts on you guys. And then Nova injured his knee. And so we had to have a replacement. So Jimmy decided to put me and Tank together with Nova as our manager. So,
yeah.
And then they put the tag titles on us at Six Flags. The Six Flags shows were like the big, like the kind of like the pay-per-views. Those were like the big events of the summer. And
I remember those too.
Yeah. Yeah, those were a lot of fun. They're outside, and we won them from Rene Dupree and Lance Cade, if I remember correctly. Yeah,
that's an interesting team.
Yeah. They were in Bowling Services together.
Which you ended up joining eventually.
No, I never, not Bowling Services. I turned heel though, so maybe that's what you're thinking of.
No, I've seen, because on OVW's Tag Team Championships on the Wikipedia, it has you and The Miz listed as Bowling Services, which is kind of weird because I didn't think you ever joined them.
Oh no, yeah, that's incorrect. You are correct. That's incorrect information.
That makes sense. For sure, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, Nova, a lot of people, I don't think, know Nova just by Nova. They know him by either Hollywood Nova as part of the Blue World Order, or they know him by Simon Dean, who wrestled in WWE from like 2005, 2007. But yeah, I watched a couple of those matches too, and you guys had really good chemistry, you and Nova. Very good performer. Very awesome, for sure. And you and Tank, you guys had good chemistry too as a tag team. You guys were tag team champions. Was it twice, right?
Yeah.
And you guys had a decent run. Your first run, you guys had over 100-day run. But yeah, no, good chemistry, and you don't see that, a lot with newer tag teams right off the bat. You don't see really good chemistry, and you guys had it. Now let's kind of talk about you and The Miz being a tag team. A lot of people I don't think know that one, that you were a tag team with The Miz. What was that like?
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy story too that goes with it. So it was a lot of fun. I love teaming with The Miz. So there's kind of a lot that goes with it. So timeline wise, again, I was by this time I had gone up on the road as a singles guy and performed on WWE house shows, got good reviews. So the word, Tommy Dreamer was the head of talent relations at this point, or he was the head of talent relations. And so the word was from him was like, look, they really like you. We're just trying to find something to do with you. You're ready to come up to the main roster. And then summer of 2005, I went on the road because Val Venus got hurt. I remember they needed a baby face. And then meanwhile, Matt Cappotelli and The Miz were going to be a tag team. And the gimmick was reality TV stars, Matt from Tough Enough, Miz from the Real World.
Right.
And then the next week, like they were supposed to go on the road the next week, and then Matt got hurt and they got a concussion. So they kept me on the road and put me and The Miz together. So like pretty much all the summer of 2005, The Miz and I did all the Raw house shows, which was a lot of fun, but I was kind of just filling in for Matt. And then that fall, Matt came back and Matt and Miz were back together. And then I remember I was back in OVW and, I was kind of bored. I'd been a babyface there, for 4 years, really. I'd been under contract for 2 years now. And me and Johnny Jeter had been, legit, like really good friends since we met for years. So Jeter was like the top heel on OVW TV. By this time, Paul Heyman was writing TV. So we went to Paul and said, let me turn heel and let me and Jeter do like a group thing. And so Paul was like, I don't know. And I'd never been a heel before. So we did it. And that's how I turned heel. It was a lot of fun. But the way I turned heel was, it was supposed to be me and Matt versus Jeter and Mark Henry. And right before the match, I turned on Matt. And I've never, ever, to the best of my knowledge, guys always loved working with me. I never injured anybody. I was never stiff. But when I hit Matt, I knocked him out. He just dropped.
Oh, like, man.
Oh, man. Yeah. And so, so I get on top of him and he's like, Cage, he's like, what happened? And so I'm like, all right, just listen. And then it was kind of fun. And we all joked about this after, because Mark Henry, he had to take a bunch of slams from Mark Henry. And so he's getting slammed and he's out on his feet. But also when you get body slam, you have to post for the guy or it's really heavy. Luckily, Mark is the world's strongest man. He was able to like pick Matt up and slam him. And Mark knew he was out on his feet. So we took care of him. And so anyway, we get to the back and I felt terrible. And Matt's already starting to feel better. And he's like, Cage, don't worry about it, man. I'm fine. So anyway, I went to the doctor with him that night. And they did a CAT scan just to be sure everything was okay. And that's when they found out he had the brain tumor.
Oh, man.
Which was, yeah. So, that was a lot, right? And it's kind of like, had he not got knocked out, I'm not taking credit for that. God works in mysterious ways. Had he not got knocked out, they wouldn't have found the brain tumor, and who knows when they would have. So, but now, in the professional side of things, it's like, well, all right, so Matt's out, so let's put Cage back with The Miz. So that's how I got put back with The Miz, and then we went back up on the road. I remember that Raw was a rough one because Christmas Day was on a Sunday that year, so Raw was live December 26th. So I remember we had to fly out at like 5 a.m, the day after Christmas. But anyway, me and The Miz started doing house shows and all the Raws again, and yeah, and so him and I, so going back to when we first teamed, because Miz was newer, and it was funny because I didn't know anything about him other than what I had seen on the real world. So it's kind of like, man, is this guy like committed? Like what, is he going to take this seriously? And right away we hit it off. Everybody loved Miz or loves Miz. And so, but now, I was like a replacement before, but now it's an official thing. Like Chris Cage and The Miz are going to be a team, same gimmick, reality TV stars. And we did all the Raw house shows like February, March, and then we got the word that we're debuting on SmackDown in April of that year. But that didn't happen.
Yeah, because you guys won the tag titles in OVW, and then I think if I read it correctly, within less than a month or over a month, you were let go from your contract, right?
Yeah.
How did that happen? How did you take the news for that?
Ooh, yeah. So one thing I can. Sorry, I just got to put my phone away, dude. I just got distracted. Right. Yeah. So it's a happy ending because of where I'm at today. But at the time, man, dude, I was devastated because here's how it went. I was in OVW for a few years now. I'm good to go. All the reports to me are good. We just need to find the right gimmick for this guy, and they found the right gimmick. And then all of a sudden it's like, boom, but now I'm fired. It's like, whoa, wait, what? Oh, in fact, we had even started filming vignettes, The Miz and I. I don't know if you remember, but a vignette aired for The Miz,
right,
on SmackDown. We're going to SmackDown. It was just him, and even then, this is before I got fired, and I'm like, you never know with WWE, right? So I remember talking to one of the writers that was working with us. I was like, I'm still in, right? He's like, oh yeah. so we got the script, and we're going to film a vignette to air the following week. And it was going to be more of the Miz. And then I still remember reading the email. I turned the camera around, and it's on me, and we're filming each other doing crazy wacky. And we're like reality TV stars.
Yeah.
So what happened though the week before, we all went out like, you know, we always do. A lot of us did in that day. And so the other thing going on with me at this time, my personal life is out of control. Drinking all the time. There was no wellness policy then. And so, you know, I'm not a lot of partying. You know, I'm not blaming that. I made all my choices, but I participated in having that. So I remember St. Patrick's Day of 2006, we all go out one night, and next day I wake up in the hospital, and didn't know how I got there. And when you wake up in the hospital and don't know how you got there, you know, that's a really strange feeling. And what had happened was, so I nearly died from everything I was putting into my body and the way I was partying, the way I was living. And it finally caught up with me. Meanwhile, the wellness policy, are you familiar with that?
Now, yeah.
Okay. It just went into effect like that week. So there, you know, because Eddie had died, you know, back in November. I think Road Warrior Hawk had passed away at like age 40. You know, and I think in my opinion, in addition to the bad press that gets, I think WWE also wanted to start cracking down on a lot of the partying and stuff that was going on. So to kind of protect people as well and protect them.
Oh, for sure.
They had the wellness policy. And so I remember, you know, I'm the new guy coming in. I'm debuting that week on SmackDown. This was on a Sunday. We're debuting on Tuesday. That's what SmackDown was filmed Tuesday. And Johnny called me. He was like, John Laurinaitis. He's like, what happened? And I explained what happened. And he's like, this looks bad. You know, he goes, this looks real bad. He's like, I got to talk to Vince. We're going to talk to Vince about you. And they held a meeting about me with Vince. It's like, oh my gosh, man, what? And Johnny calls me back, and he goes, Vince thinks you need to go away and get better. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I was like devastated. You know, this was my whole everything. And everything was right there, man. Like we had gear. We were like, I thought they would come back and say, okay, never mind. Just, you know, behave yourself. Because we were planned. It was already written in and we're going to debut. And so then, you know, and I screwed the Miz up because now, you know, they don't know what to do with him. And he has to sit out a little bit longer. You know, we didn't have any issues or anything. Everybody was glad I was okay, really. But I was devastated. So, and then what ended up happening was, I think like that fall 2006, Miz debuted as like the Ryan Seacrest gimmick, where he was like a hype guy or something.
Right, for the Diva search, I think.
Yeah. So I'm glad it all worked out for the Miz. He's done wonderful.
Oh yeah, I mean, two-time world champion, intercontinental champion. Like, dude is definitely a future Hall of Famer for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you did have a great career though in OVW, being tag team champion 3 times, being a former world champion. You carved your name in that history. That must have been one of the highlights of your career for sure.
Dude, it was, man. And you know, it meant a lot to me to win the OVW tag titles, and it really meant a lot to me to win the heavyweight title because like I said, I started my career there. And when I first started training there, Rico Constantino was the champ. Remember Rico?
Yep.
And
it's hard to forget Rico if you're an actual fan of wrestling.
Yes, Rico was great. And a lot the guys that held that belt, man, those were like guys I really respected. You know, like some of my trainers, you know, John Cena, Nick Dinsmore, Rob Conway, Doug Basham. Some other underrated guys, the Basham brothers. And so yeah,
I love them. The Bashams were awesome.
Oh, they were great, man. I learned a lot from Doug Basham. But yeah, the people that held that title, Rip Rogers.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. I was really proud of that. Yeah.
That's an awesome moment. So tell us what it was like when you got the phone call saying WWE was interested in bringing you back.
Yeah. And so the way that worked was again kind of some of my own doing. So when I got fired in 2006, like I said, I was devastated. I just was like, you know, I needed to get my own personal stuff in order. And so I moved back home to Ohio and did some like indie shows, and but I was just like a mess, you know. And so I moved back to Louisville like a year later, still did some stuff from OVW without a contract. And WWE then pulled out of OVW, and they moved to Florida, for Florida
FCW, yep.
So now, yeah, OVW is back to what it was originally, where it's, you know, not associated with WWE, but it's Ohio Valley Wrestling, run by Nightmare Danny Davis. And when WWE left, I was able to do more on the shows now because, like I said, I didn't have a contract. And so I just, you know, my thinking was, my goal was to get back with WWE. My thinking was I might as well stay around OVW. I'm still welcome there, even after I got fired. Danny Davis, you know, let me stay around there. And I thought this is still a great place to learn and improve. And it was a good move because this was fall of 2008, Laurinaitis came down to look at guys. And so that's how I got in front of WWE again. And Laurinaitis came down, and by this time I had, you know, gotten myself straight and got stopped drinking and all that. And, you know, we learned, right? And I got more mature, if you want to say it like that. I'm still not very mature today, but I stopped, you know, doing all the really dumb stuff, right? And so Laurinaitis came down, and you know, there was like, I think I don't know, 50 or 60 wrestlers there. And man, you know, after we were done, I went right up to Johnny and I was like, hey, can I talk to you? And he said, sure. And you know, I told him, I was like, look, you know, I'm really sorry for what happened last time. And I realized the position I put the company in, and I can tell you I've done some things to, you know, straighten myself out. And Johnny says, well, he goes, I hated to fire you because you're really good. And I remember thinking, okay, well, that's good. And he goes, would you be willing to go to Florida? And I said, I'd love to go to Florida. I thought he meant for a tryout with FCW. But he meant just, you know, getting re-signed. And he said, all right, Kris. He's like, well, you're one of the guys on my list. Then he goes, you have some people rooting for you too. He goes, but you probably knew that, huh? Because also at this time, Tommy Dreamer, who is always a supporter of mine, had been talking to John. Hey man, why don't you give Cage another shot? I remember John Morrison told me that he saw Johnny at TV and was like, hey man, just rehire Cage. So
that's awesome.
I appreciate it. And but you know, anyway, a week later, I found out I got rehired, and the people that got hired with me were myself, Ryback, Abraham Washington, and Fletcher Chase. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I don't remember him. Abraham Washington, I do remember.
Yeah.
Ryback, obviously, you can't forget Ryback. But yeah, the other one I don't remember.
Fletch was a extremely underrated talent. I felt he could wrestle, but even more so, he was a great manager. And Dusty Rhodes had him do commentary. And he was like a Bobby Heenan. He was so good, and I don't know why they let him go. But anyway, the four of us got re-signed, and man, I couldn't believe it. You know, I was really, really happy. And
for sure, man. I mean, that's a lot of people's goal is to be in WWE. I mean, now you got more promotions out there that people are like, yeah, I'm good with either one. But which Trent is in one of them right now, which we'll talk about him right now coming up here. The DudeBusters was formed in FCW. It started with just you and Trent, where then you guys added Curt Hawkins, and then when you guys got called up, you and Trent got called up just as you guys. Tell us how the DudeBusters were formed. Tell us about how you met Trent and how that became a thing. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I came to FCW in December of 2008, and it was really cool because like I said, I was just so ecstatic to get rehired, and I got to come to Florida, which I was like, this is freaking amazing. Another cool thing, Dr. Tom Pritchard was the head trainer. Doc's somebody I've always loved over my career. He hired me the first time. He was head of talent relations then. And so Doc was the head trainer. I had a good rapport with him. Norman Smiley, who I'm like, I'm one of the guys I'm aware of this, and I've been told everyone liked me. Kofi Kingston's like that. Norman is like, everybody loves Norman. No, and he's been in the business like 30 plus years. Like nobody has a bad thing to say about Norman Smiley. So him and Doc were the main trainers. I knew Steve Kern from when I was with WWE before. Dusty was here. It was just, man, it was just great. And then the one thing I noticed right away was by this time in developmental, there was no non-contract guys. It was all contracted guys. And a lot of the contracted guys, some of them were new. Bo Dallas was pretty new. Joe Henning was pretty new. And so, I came in, I was kind of like a veteran guy. I had 7 years in at that point. So came in, mixed. I knew probably half the guys. The other ones I got to know and become good friends with, like Kurt Hussey or Fandango, Heath Slater. That's where I met all those guys. Wade Barrett, Sheamus, and man, just had the best time. And almost immediately people were like, "Oh, you and Trent Barreta should be a tag team. You guys kind of look alike." And so the other different thing about FCW was, OVW was fun because Cornette ran it like a territory. It was storylines, made sense, and stuff built off each other. And like I said, I learned how to do TV and get time cues. FCW, there really wasn't a lot of that. It was more of like directly under the eye of WWE, and you might try out different gimmicks week to week on TV, and it didn't have to make sense storyline wise. There really weren't coherent storylines. So me and Trent, I think my second week there, they put us together as a team. Trent Barreta and Caylen Croft. I had watched Wedding Crashers, and at the end, Will Ferrell is Chaz, and Trent and I's first match together. That's where I did that. I got it from Will Ferrell, and all the boys popped. So I'm like, okay, that's usually an indicator that it's something. And after the match, everybody was like, "Man, great match! You guys look awesome together." And we just stayed together ever since. And then Trent was him and Tony Nese on the Indies were the DudeBusters.
Okay, I didn't know they were the DudeBusters. I know Trent was in the Premier Athlete brand. I didn't know they were called the DudeBusters though.
Yeah, and I don't know how much they used it, or to what extent. And Trent would talk about it. He's like, "Yeah, the DudeBusters. We should call ourselves the DudeBusters." I was like, "What is that, like, DudeBusters?" And at one point, I can't remember when we started using it, but Dusty went with it, and then they put the tag belts on us, and we just had fun with it. I mean, I think probably some of our best stuff is in FCW as the DudeBusters. Oh, yeah. And we just had fun, and we're just being ourselves. And then that summer, Curt Hawkins did a very smart thing. He was a good friend of ours, and he, it was like 6 months or so now after his run as the Edgehead. And if you remember, Zack Ryder went right to ECW and did the Jersey gimmick, and they didn't have anything for Hawkins. So Hawkins thought, I'm out of sight, out of mind, and I'm going to be out of shape. So he came down on his own dime and trained with us. And then I think we asked Dusty if we can do a 3-man thing, like the Mean Street Posse. Yeah, that's how Hawkins came in, and that was fun. And they actually talked about bringing us up that way. There was talk in that summer of us being a 3-man. That would have been fun.
Oh, I think it would have been awesome. But then you guys wouldn't have had such great chemistry against Archer and Hawkins in tag matches. And those matches, honestly, in the entire time of watching pro wrestling, those were some of the funnest matches I've ever watched. Is you and Trent versus Hawkins and Archer. One of the best times, man. I love them. There's always one part that always gets me is there's a match you guys had against them. And Hawkins was wearing red pants, and Trent just turns to him and he's like, "Hey, cool red pants, man." I was like, "That's the best."
I think I remember that. Yeah, that's very Trent.
It was just the best, and it just made you guys so much fun, man. You guys just had such cool chemistry, and it was just an awesome time. You guys were obviously one of the focal points in FCW when you were there, one of the best in the tag divisions. You guys got moved up to ECW. You guys were in ECW for a little bit until it shut down, and then went to SmackDown. Tell us about how the main roster was for you.
Yeah. So, which by the way, I think I'm remembering this. So it was pretty funny. Hawkins was a fan of me because when he got the OVW DVDs when he was in college, and heel Chris Cage wore the leather pants, and that's where he got the leather pants from. I think I'm almost positive.
That's
anyway.
awesome.
Yeah. So okay, so the way we yeah, so we do the DudeBuster, and they must have decided they weren't going to bring us up as a 3-man group, and like that November, Edge came down to FCW, and oh, this was really cool. So I'm like 8 years in at this point, and this is one of the things I appreciate about Curt Hawkins. He never lost his fandom, and I never really did either. Right? And it made it that much cooler, I think, to appreciate. But there did become a numbing down of that for sure. Once you're working with somebody, it was really neat to be a fan of a guy. But once you're it's like they're a peer or you work with them.
Right.
That had kind of worn off until I got to hang out with Edge. Like because Hawkins knew Edge, and from his time as the Edge, I can't remember if he was rehabbing something or what, but anyway, he was down there for like a month. FCW, he rided the shows with us. One night he had me, him, and Trent over to his house. He lives here in Tampa, and he cooked us steak. He's a great guy. So I got to know him that way, and I actually made a painting of him when I was in college that I gave
awesome.
to him. That he really appreciated. So, but I just remember thinking, Edge is such a cool guy. That part of me was still kind of like, oh wow, this was the 18-year-old in me is like, this is pretty cool. So anyway, Michael Hayes came down one time, or I can't remember now, but Trent and I had a match in front of like Michael Hayes, and Edge was, like I said, had been there, and the story I was told was Edge told Michael, look, man, bring Croft and Barreta up. These guys are good. They're ready. Just bring these guys up. And then, how it can often go. I remember I got a call like on a Thursday. They're like, hey, you're needed for TV. Actually, it was a Sunday, I think. They were filming ECW because the Thanksgiving holiday. And all right, so we go to ECW, and they're like, yeah, you're debuting tonight. So okay, cool. Now, earlier at the beginning of this, we talked about our finisher move, the atomic drop into the knee. So the way that came about was we didn't have a finisher, and like I really didn't think about it until we were there, because FCW we were heels, and like Dusty would always book us to like steal it, or we'd always like go over with like a roll up and pull the tights or some sort of misdirection, and so we never really needed a finish. So we got up there. I remember Dean Malenko was like, "What's y'all's finish?" We were like, I remember I made up something like, because I thought of that like the day we were there. I'm like, oh man, like this, like I didn't think about it. We don't have a finisher. So I just made this up. I was like, we do a double DDT. And they're like, nah, we don't like that. That doesn't look safe. And so Finley came up with that for us, the atomic drop into the running knee. So that's where that was born. And yeah, we didn't have much, they didn't give us much direction. They were just like, you debut tonight against 2 locals, which it's not ideal, but whatever, it was all good. We were excited, and it's kind of hard just to beat up somebody that's for 5 minutes. It's like we're not monsters, but whatever. That's how we debuted. We did that for a few weeks, and then ECW was fun because nothing changed. Meaning Jen Bloodsworth, who is a great writer. She's a comedy writer. We still stay in touch today. She wrote for ECW then, and she would text us like the night before. It was like, this is what you guys are doing tomorrow, and it would never change. SmackDown and Raw would change multiple times throughout the day.
Yeah,
but ECW was fun. You knew what you were doing. Shortly after that, we feuded with Yoshi, Tatsu, and Goldust. That was cool because Goldust was one of the like maybe the only guy that was still there that I watched like as a kid. So like getting to work with him was really cool. Dustin Rhodes, that was really awesome. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. And Yoshi broke my nose pretty bad on one episode.
Oh man.
Yeah. And then, we got word that ECW, they were going to shut it down. And Laurinaitis held a meeting with all of us, and he just said, don't worry, no one's going anywhere. We're just shutting down the brand of ECW. And people got dispersed to Raw and SmackDown. I remember we debuted on SmackDown that night, actually. We wrestled on ECW, and then we wrestled that night at the SmackDown taping. And we debuted against Crime Time. And and I'll pause there if you have any questions.
Oh no, man, you're good. Yeah, no, I know SmackDown was a little bit of fun for you guys. You guys turned face on SmackDown, which was cool. It gave you guys more of that witty comedy stuff going on. And I think that's what made the DudeBusters is because you guys had those fun antics. We know that it was not a short while after the SmackDown where you ended up getting let go. Now, how did that come about?
Yeah, so let's see, it was actually about a year, I guess, from SmackDown to when I got let go. And which I guess isn't that long, but it was we debuted on SmackDown, and I was fired up for that because just for me personally, it was like a full circle thing, right? I was
like a throwback to OVW.
Well, yeah, that and then also, I was days away from debuting on SmackDown in 2006.
Yeah.
And, got all messed up. So getting able to come back through all that and debut on SmackDown again, in a different role, but still being on the show, that was for me like a cool, neat personal thing. And then shortly after that, we feuded with TJ and Harry, had great matches with them, the Hunk Foundation. That was fun. So you always have good matches with your friends. Usually we're buddies with them and Natty. Then we went on the European tour, and but it was kind of like after that, it was kind of like they never really had any plans for us, even from the beginning. And you can definitely do something about that, but not always.
Well, I know they had that whole thing with you guys where you guys were backstage helping them move to Sci-Fi.
Yeah, that was weird because I remember one of the writers, I forget his name, a really great guy. Because we weren't in a lot of stuff. And I remember we saw him that day and he goes, just the guys I'm looking for. He goes, you got a lot to do today. We're like, oh, sweet. And we had, I think we were in 4 segments on SmackDown, being DudeBusters. Like we think we're literally moving. So let's pack up. Yeah. We put Vicky in the moving truck at the end of the show. And then we're like, oh, sweet. So they're going to start using us more. And so that was cool. Then the next week, they're like, you're not needed for TV. Like, what?
That's a bummer.
Yeah. And so, but, we were there and, we always had good matches on Velocity with Hawkins and Archer and Hawkins, or I think we worked MVP and
JTG.
So, yeah, a few times. Him and Trent and I would have some single matches. And so, we were just kind of there. But the other thing, so when I got let go, I was surprised. And because I thought that they would they'd keep me around to just, I can work with anybody. I could teach the younger guys. I thought they'd keep me around for that. You remember how like Scotty Too Hottie was like in the early 2000s, even Bob Holly, I thought they'd have me around for like stuff like that. So, and then I was surprised that they let me go and not Trent. I was glad for Trent. So, but the other thing, the bigger thing that was going on for me is I think at that point in my life, I'd been through so much with wrestling and a lot of it self-inflicted, and there was a lot of great, redemption and getting to come back and do stuff that I lost out on. You never want to be told you're not needed. And I was also like, shoot, I'm 30, I'm about to be 31. I've done this my entire 20s. Now what do I do? But there was another part of me that was at peace with, leaving and
Yeah.
and being excited. Wow, what's next? And that was important for me too, I think, because I know when I got fired in 2006, it was all about, WWF is life and I got to get back there. Whereas this time I saw, there is more to life than pro wrestling. And that was a new, realization for me.
Well, so let's ask you this. What have you been doing since?
Yeah. So when I got let go, man, I was like, man, I was like, I'm not going to do any indies. I just, kind of had fun not doing anything for a bit. And I knew I wanted to change careers. So I had my art degree, that my parents made me get that I thought I'd never use. And I thought, if I'm going to do something different, what do I want to do? And I just, I still do this today when I need to make a decision or get my thoughts clear. I just write, I call it taking an inventory. And I'm like, what do I like? I'm like, I like kids. Maybe I could do something with kids. Maybe I could teach art. And so, yeah, I ended up becoming a elementary school art teacher. And that's kind of a whole story in itself, how I got hired there. And, WWE wrestler looked pretty cool on a resume. Doesn't qualify me to be a teacher, but
right.
The first principal that hired me was a former pro tennis player, Mike Angle. Anyway, I got hired as a teacher, assigned an intent to earn, to take all the state exams and all that, and ended up having a 9-year career. Yeah, as a school teacher. And then about 3 or 4 years ago, I started getting the entrepreneurial bug and ended up doing a couple of different things, which led me to coaching, life coaching, business coaching. So that's what I do today. I started my own business a few years ago, and that's what I do full time now. I moved into that. I left teaching a year ago. And but man, wrestling like set all of that up, really. And getting rehired by WWE, I forget this sometimes, totally changed my life because it brought me to Florida. So when I left wrestling, I ended up becoming a teacher here in Florida and met my wife here. She's from Miami. And I just, I really love living here. I built up, it's like home now.
Yeah.
And even today, I get to do cool stuff like this. That's why I appreciate you asking. With my coaching, I can draw on my wrestling to like teach people, like talk about what commitment is. If you have a dream, you can achieve it. It's there for a reason. So, all that stuff. It's neat. It's like it's just part of the journey. We all have our journeys, and wrestling's a big part of mine.
Oh, for sure, man. Do you watch the current product right now?
Yes, that's a good question. So I remember when I got let go this last time, I watched Raw. It's actually, I remember because Miz won the World Championship. There's a night he beat Orton. And I was like, wow. And so me and the Miz have our history. So that was cool to, like, I'm on my way out and he's winning the world title. It's kind of fitting, I think, and
bittersweet.
Then not even because like that can sound bittersweet, but it was because I knew for me, like, I was at peace with everything. So it was kind of cool to, like, him and I were a team, and
yeah, I'm
moving on to something different. He's being world champ. So
yeah, I get it.
Then yeah. And the other thing that happened was what was Punk's group called? Not Nexus. He had that group. Maybe it was Nexus.
It was the new Nexus.
Anyways. Yeah, the new Nexus, because I remember Joe Henning was in it, or Mike McGillicuddy, awful name. Joe hated the new Nexus. Oh yeah, he was pissed. But the new Nexus came out, and I remember seeing Joe and Heath and Stu or Wade Barrett, all these guys, and I was like, man, these are my buddies. I'm just, I'm not gonna see them. So that was like a bummer. And then I didn't watch it for 6 months, and I was fine, but I didn't watch it. And then I was over at my buddy's house one night, and he was watching it, and he goes, "Do you still watch this?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Why?" He goes, "Are you scared you'll miss it?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I started watching it, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool." I'm still a fan, and it's like, on a different level because I know most of these guys. A lot of these guys are my friends, and what got me back into watching it again was the CM Punk, Alberto Del Rio feud from back in 2011. And Punk's a buddy of mine. So it was fun to watch that. And then and then to answer your question, I watched it over the years, and over the last few years, I just kind of had not watched as much. And I would check myself with wrestling friends, and I'm like, look, you know me, I'm not bitter former employee guy. Is the product not as good? And they're like, yeah, it's not as. And then a lot of that had to do, I think, with no fans in the arena. With I watched last week, and it was cool to have the fans back.
Yeah.
So you just need it, right? You need fans in pro wrestling because they had the piped in crowd stuff. But they did the best they could, right? WWE with what they had.
For sure.
So I don't watch it I still DVR it every week, and I might not watch it every week, but I'll fast forward just kind of see what's going on. So yeah, I follow. I was gonna say I follow enough guys like Nick or Dolph Ziggler is a buddy of mine. I follow him on Twitter, so through that, and I see what's going on. I know
you still talk to Trent. You still follow Trent a little bit.
Oh yeah. So it's not that you don't become friends with any, but it's just that you don't see guys as much. But the people I have stayed in touch with are Trent's one of them. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Him and Ryback. I talk to Ryback all the time.
Well, I did just watch your show with being on Ryback's show, so that was pretty fun. Ryback's
cool.
Ryback's a really cool dude. I know a lot of people go back and forth with him sometimes, but I've always been a fan of Ryback, even when he was Skip Sheffield.
Yeah.
But I know you what it do. But I know you got somewhere to be, man. Yeah. So I appreciate you coming on the show, Kris. It's been a lot of fun, man. I enjoyed talking to you and getting to know where your career was and everything that happened and stuff like that. So it was really fun to talk with you, man. Do you want to tell the fans where they could check you out at?
Yeah. There's my coaching website, krispavone.com. I have a podcast, The Kris Pavone Show. I have not released a new episode in about a year, but it's evergreen content. It's positive, inspirational, educational, uplifting content. There's 150 episodes. You can get it on your favorite podcast app. That's Kris with a K. I'm Croft Daddy WWE on Twitter, and I'm Kris Pavone, Kris with a K, Kris Pavone on Facebook. If you'd like to connect there, Mike, Matt, are you and I friends on Facebook?
We are not, but I'll send you a friend request.
Yeah, let's do that.
Absolutely. Guys, this has been a pro wrestling podcast with Matt and friends. Kris, thank you so much. This is Kris Pavone, aka Caylen Croft. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed.